Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Fierros with Tri-City Equity Group. With me is my co-host, Vince Gethings. Today, we have Steven Pesavento on the show. Steven is the host of the Investor Mindset Podcast, an active investor who curates commercial real estate investments for clients at VonFinch Capital. He's raised tens of millions of dollars, successfully cyced through multiple assets, started off in single family and flipping. So we'll definitely have some questions for him about that here in a little bit. And that's been in under 3 years, he completed over 200 transactions. That's pretty incredible. That's getting after it. So that was prior to expanding into commercial. So now he's focusing on serving successful high-income earners, just like himself, who are looking to create some flexibility and some financial independence. Steven, welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here. Love you guys. This is awesome.
Now we're excited to have you on and share some aloha with you. And we'd love to provide our audience with whatever kind of value and some gems we know that you've got for us. So. Yeah, excited to have you on.
I love that. I've never experienced the aloha spirit until this summer. Thank goodness COVID happened because it gave me the opportunity to go to the Big Island for 2 months. And thank goodness Maui didn't let us in so that we got to go on the Big Island. And just incredible people, incredible spirit. A little slow for me, but it was exactly what I needed at the time.
I know exactly what you mean. When I first moved here, I couldn't, slow down either. I'm like, I just want to, go. And they're just like, no, like, let's just settle down and take it easy. So I understand.
It's called Hawaii time. That's what it is. So yeah, it's the place to relax, especially wherever you're at on Big Island. So, well, let's fill us in a little bit. How'd you get started in your journey in real estate?
I probably have a story very similar to other people who've made the leap. But I think what's different is that, I was working in management consulting. I graduated from a really good school and I started in this dream type of a career. Management consulting is the type of role that when you're a business grad that really everyone's drawn to. Everyone wants that role. It's prestigious. You're going into these companies. You're a hired gun. You're going in to make change happen. And I love making change happen. And so in that role, ended up seeing a lot of success, but I was feeling unfulfilled. And so I was drawn to go start searching for a way and frankly, a community of people who are more passionate. So that led me to working in technology, working in the tech startup space, moved out from Minneapolis to Boulder, Colorado to work within this amazing little community, an incubator community of ideas, and frankly, being surrounded by people who believe that something is possible, that something much bigger than what everyone else is thinking is possible. And that really fit with me because I've always been a real growth-minded person. But I didn't stop there, and from career to career, company to company, I kept doubling my salary and kept kind of moving through the process. But each time I stayed less and less because I got more and more clear on exactly what I wanted, why I wanted it, and frankly, the kind of life that I was trying to create. And that's when I finally decided and pushed all into real estate. I didn't have any experience, had a lot of limiting beliefs that were holding me back. Things like, I don't have a background in this. I don't know anybody else. I don't have family members who are in real estate. I don't have the money. I don't have the family with all the money. And so therefore, how could I ever go about doing this? But it was a moment that really changed my whole life, was that I was sitting and I remember jumping off the couch and just deciding in that moment. And it wasn't the kind of decision where you say, you know what, I'm going to go forward and do that. It was the kind of decision that you make. And it's the kind of decision you have to make, that when you say, I'm doing this, and without a doubt that you are going to find a way. And for me, I'm a burn the boats kind of guy. I go all in one direction. I don't recommend it for everybody because really sometimes it's not the right fit. But for me, as a singular focus type of person, I burned the boats and let go of all my clients on the digital marketing side and went 100% in real estate. And over about a 2.5 year period, had flipped or wholesale, done over 200 projects in 2 different cities. And I would have never believed that I could before I decided in that moment to push into it. Now, fast forward, obviously, we're focused on multifamily. We're focused in, serving our private capital network. But I'm so grateful that in that moment, I made that decision. And I hope that anyone who's listening, who's in a place where they might be thinking that they want to do something different in their life, that they can connect to that pain of not taking action, or connect to the pleasure of what life might be like, so that they can truly decide and move forward. Because if you guys do, good things are going to happen. I can promise you.
Well, that's the show, guys. Let's wrap that up. No, that is absolutely awesome. I'm gonna hop in real quick. I completely understand. I am the burn the ships kind of guy as well. I need to just jump in, fully decide, and make sure there's no backing out. One of the quotes on my vision board in front of me is I got from a movie called Gattaca. It's never save anything for the swim back. Very similar to the burn the ships analogy as well, where you have to just decide on it, and your why of why you're doing it has to be stronger than anything else, where failure is not an option. And that's what I did. Everybody has, I got 3 kids, so it's the easy, the go-to why of why you jump into things like this and take these leaps of faith into, these entrepreneurial endeavors. So I completely understand where you're coming from on that. So thank you for sharing that. So for the mindset, how'd you get past some of those limiting beliefs?
Well, it was a long journey, and it continues to be a journey, but it really starts with plugging in and surrounding yourself with people who believe things much bigger than the level of belief that you currently have. I'm a big proponent of stealing or taking or borrowing other people's beliefs. And one of the quickest ways that you can do that is by getting in proximity. And you can do that through listening to a podcast like we're doing right now. You can do that through reading books and looking up to incredible leaders that have put their knowledge into one place for you to be able to consume that. Or of course, masterminds, and of course, coaching. But you go to places and you go to communities and you get surrounded by other people who have these beliefs and are doing things at another level. And then you start to believe it. You start to see not only that it's possible for them, but you start to believe that it's possible for you. And it starts, sometimes the reason why I call it borrowing someone's belief is because what you're really doing is you're taking that belief that they have, that life can be different, that it's possible to go and do these things, that you can have the kind of life that you're dreaming about, but you might be thinking it's not possible for me. You borrow that belief, you kind of put that coat on, or put that identity, or put that superhero suit on for a second, and you feel what it feels like if that was possible. And then you start believing it. And when you start believing it, then things start really happening, because there's this whole idea of fake it till you make it. Well, I don't believe that you should fake it till you make it in your career, but I do believe you should fake it till you make it with new beliefs, because at first, anything that you do, you're not going to be very good at it. And so when you're taking on this new identity of somebody who could be a real estate investor, somebody who could passively invest in these kind of deals, somebody who could make these kind of decisions, someone who can go out and invest directly themselves as an active operator, you have to put on the identity of somebody who's going to be able to do that. You have to start having the thoughts and values and beliefs of somebody who can do that. And so I'm a big proponent of going and finding other people who've done that. And so for me, I was listening to Tim Ferriss since episode 1, got introduced to Tony Robbins, got introduced to this whole idea, this whole personal development type movement, and surrounding myself with other people who believed that they could change their life. And through that process over many years, and I will continue to do this for the rest of my life, I continue to invest in myself, changing those thoughts and beliefs so that I can continue to move forward. I mean, I just spent 95 hours, 6 days working at a Tony Robbins event online. And the reason why I continue to go back to that is because you need to continue going to the well, to continue to pulling more water out, to continue to fill yourself up, to nourish yourself, to replenish yourself, because there's always another level that you can go to. And so that's one of the easiest and quickest ways, I think, to take on those new beliefs is borrowing them, and then continue to do that over and over so that you can continue to feel that ascent, because you need that progress, because that progress is what gives you energy and it keeps that momentum alive.
No, that's huge. And I think that's actually, I can already see like, okay, like us focusing on this is probably more valuable than just kind of getting lost in the details. Of course, I mean, I know you've got an interesting story, but I think for the most people, and especially right now, right? Like when we're recording this and we're still in the midst of, kind of the pandemic, that's almost kind of that layer of hope that people have. It's like, okay, look, if there's a time to change, to make a change in myself, to make a change in the, whatever limiting beliefs that I have, I think people right now are more open to change than they typically ever would be, and they need that lifeline of hope. So, having that to reach out, to make, just like how you mentioned, just to be able to make some mental progress, to, hey, you know what? No, I can do more than this. I can do more than the same, rut that I've been stuck in, the same job, the same future that they would have for the last however many years. Now's the time to make a change. And so that's something that's definitely easily accessible. I love that. And we've got more resources to that than ever before. I love The Strangest Secret. I don't know if you've ever listened to that, but Earl Nightingale. I don't know how many times I've listened to that. And it's like this retraining of your mind. I grew up, same thing to you, I mean, I grew up with you, but limiting beliefs, lots of limiting beliefs. And you almost just have to kind of wash out all of that junk, and just over and over and over and over again. To start believing that, hey, you know what, it is possible. Exactly what you just touched on.
Well, sometimes it doesn't feel fair because it doesn't feel like you have control over these thoughts and beliefs, because you were given this blueprint by your parents. You were given this blueprint by your experiences of life, by the experiences that you had, by the values of other people around you. But you didn't think those aren't your original thoughts. Those aren't your original beliefs. Those are beliefs that you have taken from other people. And because we didn't architect that blueprint, and we don't even know that it's possible to start thinking differently, we think that, hey, well, we're trapped in this way of thinking. If you grew up in extreme poverty and you were surrounded by people who had a low mindset, a mindset that was in a place of scarcity, in a place of failure or fear, or if you grew up in a middle-class mindset and your parents were all about traditional education and staying in their job and doing things exactly the way that somebody tells them to do, you're going to have one set. If you grew up around entrepreneurs, you're going to have another set. But the key thing is to remember is that it's possible to start identifying what those thoughts and beliefs are, what those values are, what that blueprint is, and start to question it. Not question it like you need to question your entire identity, which is something you absolutely can do and you can reshape that. But by going through the process of just one little bit at a time, or diving in and immersing yourself in some kind of crazy cool experience, you can start to see that change happen. And it doesn't happen right away, or it's happening, but it's in such a small little amount that you don't notice it. Because if you think about something that's the absolute smallest segment possible, the size of a human hair, when a human hair doubles in size, do you notice it? No. When it doubles again from 2 to 4 hairs, do you notice it? No. When it doubles from 4 to 8, do you notice it? No. But if you continue to double that, if you continue to layer on that change over and over and over again, all of a sudden you get to 19 segments. So you're at 500,000 plus hairs, and at 20, you're at 1 million. So the crazy thing is that what really happens is that by going through the process of reconditioning yourself continuously over and over again, the speed to those doublings happen, the speed to that progress starts to really increase. And that's when you're going to really start to notice it. But you don't notice it at first. You only notice it once things have already been moving in that direction. So you've got to stay with it.
Wow.
No, for sure. I thought you were talking about my arm hair for a minute.
Yeah, his arm hair. So you did this when you were doing these tech startups, doing the job you were doing before, went full-time into real estate, and you ended up doing it was like 200 flips, right? Is that accurate? And then so tell us about that. Like, what was that transition like? Lessons learned, and the outcome of that. And then you said you had failure in there as well, right?
Well, one big failure was before I even got into real estate. I left a job that I moved out to Colorado for. I was making a lot of money, and I left to start this on-demand storage company. It was essentially like an Amazon-like interface for your stuff. We'd come to your house, we'd take all of your items, we'd take photos, and when you wanted certain items back, like your own private closet with a delivery service, we'd come and deliver you that box of all your winter gear or your snowboard or all these things, so that when you're living in a small apartment, you're able to, have access to unlimited amount of storage. And it was a really, really cool idea. And we were getting a lot of traction. But thankfully, we did not take funding from outside investors. So we weren't handcuffed to the idea after a year of working on it and realizing that it wasn't the right personal alignment or wasn't the right founder alignment. So after over a year of working on something that was everything, it was my identity. I was an entrepreneur. I was a founder. I was going in this direction. I felt this massive amount of failure. And the reason I share that is because that ended up leading into what happened in real estate, because by going through that experience, by putting everything that I had into something and then being able to make that decision in that moment that this is not in alignment with where I actually want to go. When I took the time to get clear on what it was that I wanted, why I wanted it, what I wanted life to look like, then it made it really simple for me to start moving down that path. So fast forward to flipping houses. When I got started in real estate, I started flipping houses because I needed to create income, right? I was no longer working in a W-2 space. I was no longer working on the consulting side. I had to create income and I didn't have a lot of money. And so I thought to myself, well, in real estate, if I'm going to learn how to advance as a real estate investor, then I'm going to need to be creating income consistently. And flipping and wholesaling, great way to make income in real estate and really get familiar with the space. So my belief at the time was, well, if I just invest all this time, effort, energy in creating a high volume flipping company, then I'm going to be able to create massive wealth. I'm going to be able to create more money than I've ever earned in my life. And, that was true. And it absolutely still is true. And through that process, what we did was we actually went out and it all started with one deal, but it was marketing direct to sellers. And so we'd send marketing through direct mail, through phone calls, through text messages, through the internet with pay-per-click ads, and we started with one channel and we started reaching out, and then people would call us and we would, make an offer to buy their house. And so through this process, we went from 0 deals, no experience in real estate, to within 12 months, having purchased and sold over 75 properties. And so in that short amount of time, the big reason why that was possible was not because I was special or not because we, had some magical formula that we had crafted. What we did was we surrounded ourselves with people who already had that business. They had already figured it out. And we were able to look at, okay, how can I partner with an operator, somebody who already has experience in the space, maybe not at this level, and how can I bring value to them? That was the first question that I asked myself. And my partner had been flipping for over 20 years, but never at this volume. So I knew he knew how to run that kind of a business. And then I thought, well, who is currently operating at a high level? Who is going out and finding deals at a high level? And then I modeled their business. I took the things that were working for them and I applied it in my market. I went and found a different market. I went and partnered in that market so that I had boots on the ground. And I ended up building this company, over 15 people in 2 different states, who our whole job was to go buy houses directly from homeowners and then take those houses and recondition them and then sell them. And so, over that first year, everything was just about how do we put these systems and processes in place so that we can earn that income, so that we can finally get to that place of being able to truly invest that money, that earned income, and we can put it into investment properties to be able to start seeing consistent passive returns, which I can talk about what ended up happening there in a second.
Absolutely. So that's incredible. And you did 200, right? And then, so you got a bunch of money, you developed the system processes. For those of us on the call who are very technical, what are some, give us one example of way you found efficiency at the peak of that business through the systems and processes? We got a lot of listeners that are looking for the technical, nuggets there.
Yeah. So I think breaking down a system and a process, a system is just a repeatable way of executing something on a regular basis. So, the system in our marketing business was that every single month we were sending out, 15, 25, 50, 100,000 mailers a month at peak season. And we had a specific process for pulling a list, for understanding what the right type of ideal customer is, the people that we're targeting, and how we're going to make sure that that mail goes out consistently. And we had a process specifically for how we're going to take those calls, a script, which is the exact word track, talk track that somebody on our team is going to use so that every single phone call has some similar uniform characteristics so that we can put that information into our CRM and then have that move directly to the next phase, which is to go on that appointment to talk with that seller. And each stage of the process, from identifying who to target all the way to closing the contract, all followed the same process every single time. And some of the systems that went in there oftentimes were people-based systems, meaning the system is a person who's going to execute this activity on a regular basis. Of course, we built some automations and some other technical tools to be able to achieve this. At the end of the day, we first got clear on what it was that we're trying to achieve, what the outcome was, and then backtracked. How can we track the progress that we're making towards getting there? Because oftentimes, right, even if we're sending out 100,000 mailers and our phones are going to get melted because we're going to get a ton of calls every single day as those mailers hit, each week and each day of the month, at the core, it's being able to back in to understand, well, how many mailers is going to end up turning into how many phone calls, and how many phone calls turns into a lead, and how many leads turns into an appointment scheduled, and how many appointments scheduled turns into an appointment ran, and how many appointments ran turn into a contract, and how many contracts turn into profit or a closing. And so by getting clear on each of the different steps and then tracking them along the way, and I'll admit, as a person who is much more of a driver visionary than an integrator, sometimes we would fail at tracking things well, but there's a lot of lessons learned in doing so. And so the important thing is getting clear on what it is that you want, why you want it, and then understanding how you're going to track the progress, because you don't always notice, again, back to the example of doubling, you don't notice when those first calls come in, because sometimes it might take 4 to 6 months for somebody to turn from a lead into a contract. So if you're not tracking each of the steps along the way, you won't be able to have that feeling of progress, that you are actually moving closer to the end outcome that you're actually going after.
Excellent breakdown on that. So that was when you were 27. Fast forward 4 years. What has the last 4 years looked like as you transition? Looks like you maybe transitioned out of flips into multifamily, are now deal sponsor and providing opportunities for other people, other investors that are looking to get into the space as well.
And before he answers that too, for our listeners, I was just going to say at 27 years old. So, let that sink in for the portion of our audience that thinks that they're too young. I can't get into, real estate, or that thinks that they're too old. And again, thinks that age is a factor. It's like, no, let that sink in. I mean, this guy's absolutely, Steven's crushing it, at an age where most people are not thinking of that. So.
Well, let's just touch on that age thing for a second, because the same reason that you might decide as a listener that you can't do this, or that you're not ready for this, or whatever that BS story, or that belief system that's leading to the story that you're telling yourself is, it's complete BS. And the reason that it's BS is because the same reason that somebody at 27 might say, I can't do this, I don't have the experience, like I did before I decided that I was going to do it. Somebody at 27 might say, like I told myself, I must do this. It's a must that I must do this, because the worst thing that could happen is I totally fail and I end up going back to management consulting, and I continue to make money in my life in this place, but I learned something. But by doing it, I could create a whole nother life. And so I often hear this from parents. And so for all you parents out there, I don't have kids myself. I can only imagine. I got a puppy in the last year, back in January. Before getting a puppy was the thing everybody did in COVID time. And it blew my mind. I was overwhelmed with having the responsibilities of having this being that needed me, that needed me all the time. But what I'll share with the parents is that the same exact reason that you might say, I don't have the time. There's no way I can do this. I can't make this happen because I've got young kids, is exactly the reason why you must make it happen. You just got to flip it. You just got to take that story that's holding you back and say the opposite. Because you have kids, because you have a family, you must go create this wealth. You must invest in real estate. You must, double your income in the next 12 months because you want so much for your family. And if you don't, then what is that going to end up looking like? So for me at 27, I was at a place where I had this massive amount of clarity. I had this unique life experience that shed a lot of weight from me mentally and emotionally. And I had this clarity to decide to move forward. And so, between 27 and 30, essentially, I had done these over 200 properties. And in that time, I ended up getting this realization. And it was a realization when we were heading into the holidays and the market was shifting and interest rates had gone up. This is before COVID. Interest rates had gone up and the market froze. And my business partner, one of my mentors, somebody that I looked up to, had gone through 2008, had watched his portfolio of hundreds of houses, of apartment buildings that he had owned in Southern California, a very volatile market when things go bad. He had watched himself chase the market down and lose nearly everything. Luckily, he got out, but he lost over $10 million. Because he saw the writing on the wall, he was able to sell off the rest of his portfolio and come out in an okay position, but obviously feeling that emotional trauma of the loss. And so when this happened, it triggered that feeling for him. It also triggered that feeling for me because I had spent time emotionally firewalking, feeling what it felt like to be in his shoes so that I could understand, even though I hadn't been through a recession, what it was emotionally like to go there, right? To visualize, to feel that. So when interest rates dropped, when interest rates went up, what happened was the market in single family, it froze. Houses were not selling. We had over 15 houses that we owned, over $60,000 or $70,000 a month in loans and payments to our investors. And those are not equity investors. Those are loans. We owe that money regardless of whatever happens at the end of the day. And so for us and for me, it was a big realization. We didn't want to be in a position where we didn't have a chair to sit down when the music stopped. And so our business was going really well. It was continuing to grow. But when that happened, it triggered both of us to take a look and realize, well, what do we really want? Why were we really doing this? And so that had me start to search for ways that I could invest the money that I was already making and start holding on to more of the assets. But I went down this path of starting to invest and hold on to some of these single family properties, right? Because when you're buying 7 to 10 houses a month, you've got a good pipeline of properties that might be good things to keep. And it's pretty hard to keep something when you're going to get $100 to $200 a month in cash flow if you just sold it today and you make 30 or 40 or 50 grand. It's really, really hard. But I made some of those hard decisions and started holding on to some of these single families. But then I started experiencing, even with the infrastructure, even with the team, even with the background in construction, that you're going to deal with problems being an active owner, that you're going to deal with problems of tenants trashing properties, of property managers not actively managing the unit, of property managers overspending on fixes, of property managers siding with the tenant over siding with the owner out of fear, right? And so I started dealing with some of these in my portfolio and started dealing with some of the challenges that go along with that. Started dealing with the challenge of a property manager making $60 a month on at a 6% management fee, making $60 a month to manage an asset that's $100,000 or maybe $150,000 that somebody's paying $1,000 a month. They're making 60. There's not really a good incentive alignment. And that's when I stumbled onto multifamily. And that's when I stumbled onto commercial real estate and what's possible when you start looking at things from a scaled level. And as somebody who came into the business specifically looking at how can I scale this as quickly as possible to be able to create as much income and leverage for myself and for my clients. When I saw what you could do in multifamily, I started seeing a lot of the challenges, a lot of the problems with being a direct active owner were not as big of challenges anymore. because of the economies of scale, because of the leverage, I could continue to operate a business out of state, but I was able to operate in a way where there was enough margin for me to go out and check out every asset and check on the problems and work directly with the experts to be able to manage this. And that's what really drove me down the path of moving away and completely out of single family. Now, sure, I'll flip a house every now and then. It's something you've got a skill and you still enjoy doing it. Why not continue to go down that path? But I focus 99.9% of my energy moving down this path of really serving my private capital network and vetting these opportunities, because I've found that it's a much, much better vehicle towards reaching that outcome that I'm looking for. And ironically, the same outcome that so many of our investors, driven, hard driving entrepreneurs and business owners who are looking to diversify their income into multifamily, because you end up getting that diversification. You end up getting some of those passive investing benefits. And most importantly, it's much more predictable and you don't have to deal with all the BS. So, I moved completely away from the single family space and, focus all my effort and energy on trying to serve people on a much larger scale now.
Outstanding. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we try to get through because a lot of our investors as well, just a lot of our network, they started the single family space and they have that huge, keep on theme of limiting beliefs of like, oh, apartment buildings are scary. I'm like, listen, I guarantee you I do less work on my 48 unit than you do on your like 3 or 4 houses, and try to get through that. I'm like, look, my budget is really high. So I can afford better property managers. I can afford a bookkeeper. I can afford full-time handyman. Like, you're out there on your roof nailing shingles down every weekend and then running home trying to reconcile QuickBooks by the end of the month, right? Because the budgets on the single families are so small. So getting through that, I'm like, when you scale, it's not just the numbers going up, but you're also multiplying your time as well because of just the economies of scale all around multifamily. And that's just the one. I'm not going to go down that route, but that's just the one thing that you're scaling is it's not just the zeros. It's your time as well that you're getting back while still getting all of the benefits that real estate has to offer. So that's awesome. You made that transition. Where are you at now with that? Like your company, the VonFinch company. What's the forward look like? What's your 10-year goal? What markets you in? What are you looking at?
10 years is a long time. So I like to look at things in a shorter perspective because, I like to look at a shorter perspective only because the market changes so quickly and I'm moving very quickly. But, over this next year, I see massive opportunity in the market. We have been continuing to build relationships and vet some of our operating sponsors. And our model is a little bit different, that we go out and we locate institutional quality investment operators, people who've been in the business, over 500 million, over, 10 years of experience, people who have the track record of experiencing what failure feels like directly on their own dime. And so because we're going out and we're building those relationships, we're able to see what the data looks like in their portfolios and what things are looking like. And so we're very bullish on what's ahead. We expect to raise funds of over $10 million in the next 12 months to invest in these type of assets. And so for us, what it's really about, it's less about the importance of how many dollars we're putting into action and more about what kind of impact we're making. And so we know that with every property that we invest in, we have an opportunity to make a pretty significant impact in the individual investors' lives, because for some people, it's the first time they've invested in real estate. And for other people, they're absolute experts at passive investing. And many of them are active investors who are choosing to invest passively in these opportunities to create some more diversification. But for us, we know that for those people who it's their first deal or it's their 100th deal, that this is going to end up leading to the life that they really desire, that this is going to lead to enabling them to create more of what they've always wanted out of life, more time with their family. Maybe it's actually to be able to double or triple the focus in their own personal business so they can take their eye off of their day-to-day investments so they can really focus on the thing that makes them the most money. Whatever that is for them, we know that by helping them vet and then connect with these sponsors that they can make some big changes. So very excited about where things are going. Continue to expand the podcast, the Investor Mindset Show, which is a top 200 investing podcast. And it's really exciting because we've had an opportunity to interview some guests at a level that I would have never expected. You know, Chris Voss just had Mark Manson on the show.
Yeah, I was kind of jealous of your lineup there.
But what's cool about that and what's exciting for us is that each of these conversations, we get a chance to grow. Like every time I talk to one of these people, I'm thinking to myself, how is this going to serve the listeners? But I also get to ask the questions that I've been burning. And luckily, our investors often have, you know, a similar mindset of desiring growth. But our real focus is to continue to expand the channels where we reach people and be able to teach people about the benefits of this, be able to continue to, for the small select few who are the right fit, to be able to serve them, you know, in their investing journey and help them find great deals to invest in.
Great stuff. Well, Steve, you're up.
Good. Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and transition to our fire round as we kind of wind down here. So you ready, Steven? I feel like Steven's always ready. He's ready to go right now. He's just look at him. He's going to go find a deal today. All right. So what's a best book that you recommend other than Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Yeah, the best book I recommend depends on what purpose you're trying to achieve. And so at the core, I think everything has got to go back to what purpose you're trying to achieve. What's that intention? And so for me, a book that I absolutely love, like I mentioned, got to interview Chris Voss of Never Split the Difference. That book is a book that you should absolutely read if you are somebody who is looking to learn how to communicate more effectively and be able to create more influence in your space. And it's a book about negotiation, but at the core, it's really a book about psychology and about communicating. So that's at the top of my list. So I definitely recommend it if you haven't listened to it.
Absolutely. No, that's a great book. Love Chris's stuff. What's your superpower?
My superpower is the ability to take complex ideas and distill them down into a very easy to understand format and process, and be able to speak and inspire with conviction so that people believe that it's possible to do things that they once didn't. And I think that's one of the things that I love with being able to serve in the podcast within our community, is that for a lot of people, there's a lot of fear, and being able to understand how we can help people reduce or remove that fear or move through it despite having that fear has been something that's really been empowering for me. And it's definitely a superpower that I have.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I can tell it. Yeah. I pick up the conviction when you're speaking now. I mean, I love that. You're doing an awesome job. What's the biggest lesson that you've learned over your career so far?
I think the biggest lesson that I've learned, the biggest thing that I would want to remind a younger version of myself is that no matter how driven you are, no matter how much you want something, sometimes you just have to remember that you're guided by something bigger, by the universe, by God, whatever that is for you, that we're all here with a purpose, on purpose, and that things are going to happen exactly the way they're meant to be. And in a moment that might feel like terrible amount of pain, that might feel like a huge loss. You might go through something that's extremely difficult, but to remember that you're here for a reason. And that as soon as I bring myself back to that, as soon as I remind my clients of that, it's amazing how it can completely change our state and allow us to actually move forward in the way that we're supposed to, the way that we're meant to, and ends up leading to just a better way of living.
That's great. So for the busy working professional, is working towards financial freedom, what advice do you have for them?
My advice is getting super crystal clear on what it is that you're looking for and why you're looking for it. The power of clarity, I can't underline enough, because before you start investing, you need to understand what it is that you're looking to have as the outcome of making those investments, why that's important, because then the how is easy. Because then when you come to somebody like me and you apply to, be a part of our private capital network, you have the opportunity to come in and say, you know what, Steven, I'm looking to grow my wealth as quickly as possible, and I'm willing to take risks so we can help align you with opportunities that have a higher overall return and a higher risk profile, because you're comfortable with that. Or if you're somebody who's looking for consistent cash flow and kind of middle tier growth with low risk, then we can point you in that direction. But the key thing, even if you're coming in without having that decided before we're speaking together, is to really get clear on what it is that you're looking for, why you want it, because then the how of finding the right investment, finding the right opportunity, finding the right thing to do for your family is going to be easy because it's clear on what you're actually trying to achieve.
Awesome. And then very last thing, how can our audience get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I highly encourage you to check out the Investor Mindset podcast. If you're listening to a podcast right now, then clearly you're a podcast listener. We have episodes that come out twice a week. You can find us on any of the apps, or you can head over to theinvestormindset.com. And if you're interested, if you like the idea of learning from other people, then I encourage you guys to download this free gift. And we really put this together specifically because we realize that there's so many powerful ways of thinking. There's so many powerful beliefs that other successful people have that we want to remind ourselves to live with, and we know that our audience wants to remind ourselves to live with. So after 100+ interviews of incredible people, from Mark Manson to Chris Voss to Joe Fairless and everyone in between, we've put together this guide of the top 10 principles of success. And those principles apply whether you're in your W-2 position or whether you happen to be somebody who's looking to actively invest or passively invest. You can find that at theinvestormindset.com/principles. And I'm sure the guys will include that in the show notes for you, so you can find it pretty easy.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely will. Well, Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I know it's been a joy for Vince and I to chat with you in this brief time, and been jam-packed with all kinds of great stuff. So definitely go make sure that you're checking out his podcast and checking out his website as well, and downloading that free guide. So we will make sure that we will include it in the show notes. But again, thanks so much for hopping on with us today and sharing some of your time with us.
Thank you, guys. I super appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for listening, and look forward to the next time we get to hang out on audio.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Steven. Have a great one. Aloha. If you're interested in connecting with us, go to tricityequity.com to learn more, to connect with like-minded investors, join our Facebook group, Honolulu Multifamily, and more. If you found value in this podcast, please subscribe and give us a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify, wherever platform that you're taking a listen to. If you know anybody else that might resonate with today's podcast, please share the episode with them. See you next time.